which is the same thing that the major religions heads are really talking about. The Pope talking about possibilities of AIs having souls, extraterrestrials. They're unraveling their own foundations that they've sold generationally to people. And it's almost like that they want to do that so that everybody is so rattled, they'll take and cling to the new system of things, which involve a beast system and a mark of a beast, whether you're religious or not, because it is a system built by humans or maybe an AI. Either way, it enslaves the entire race under a little QR code, something that wants to quantize us all into a mathematical equation that can be reduced or multiplied as needed, whatever outcome is desired.
And now on with the video.
And I do welcome you this evening, this morning, or this afternoon, wherever you reside on this beautiful blue planet, spinning through the spiral arm of our Milky Way galaxy, on the journey through the universe. Most important issue of our world at the moment, cold weather crop losses, food prices, food unavailability, decreasing crop yields, and the hoops and hurdles that are being put in place to stop you from accessing food. Cold weather, crop loss, and the crop losses we're enduring across the planet really are the key to every other dot that you're seeing manifest spider web of globalist control. New York, I couldn't believe this. I had to double check to make sure I even was going to make a true statement here. So I went to the New York National Weather Service. The first time ever since 1870 that they have put a flash flood warning in Brooklyn, New York, and Queens, New York. And it's very similar to what was seen in China, where the subways were filling up with water, trapping people down in the subway cars. Well, you're starting to see a lot of similarities, like that much rainfall in China that had trapped people, and then how many people were trapped in the underground tunnels, underground parking garages, elevators that were down several floors. And we're seeing the same in what was considered the subway or the MRT. A lot of images, movies coming out over in China, but now we're seeing it here in the United States. Crustal anomalies going on, and crustal anomaly just means strange things happening with the crust that can't be explained, so there always needs to be some far-fetched, weird excuse. Farmland just uplifted 30 feet, and we saw cracks and fissures miles long and hundreds of feet wide in Arizona, and the Earth's crust is beginning to fracture and split as we get into the second magnetic field. You know, these two things seem to go hand in hand like a teeter-totter, like a balanced scale. The more crop losses and the heavier the amplification is to crush infrastructure, the more the control mechanism comes in play, because hungry people have nothing left to lose, and they're going to be unruly and uncontrollable. So this access to food is going to be the most important thing. So for me, everything that we're seeing out here is a giant, grandiose stage play, with the main mechanism and the main objective to get everybody limited and controlled into food access points, how much food you will access, how you will be allowed to access it, and other things that you will have to do to gain access to food. Because the elitist globalists understand that the amount of food we're growing this year isn't enough to feed the full planet. Still a sliver of backup from the last couple of years. But if we have another year like this, which is definitely forecast coming up in 2022, it's going to send shockwaves through the global society that most people will realize we got a huge, huge problem, because if it happens in 2023, we're going to go below and out of the stockpiles. And at that point, what is grown is all the world is what it gets. So this is the direction we're moving to. So understand where we're going with the food. At the end of it, 8 billion people, there will not be enough. Now, I'm going to say that with a hold breath. I'm going to hold my breath when I say this. At the present way we're growing and the present way we are distributing food, there are many solutions that could alleviate all of this bottleneck in about 2 months if the world focused on it. Manhattan Project to revamp our global agricultural systems, and we would not even have to think about this again, and magically all these control mechanisms would disappear in a fifth of an eighth of a second. The only reason all these control mechanisms are here is because access to food needs to be controlled. But again, you look at the way the world's been structured over the last couple hundred years and all these systems and top-down approaches that we've never needed just for control of society, wealth transfer on different turnings, the fourth turning, for example. And we sit here again at another precipice. Tonight's show, and I'm right here with Ransom Godwin from 420 TV Freedomist Films. Very many signs around showing you that we are indeed at that point where it can no longer be hidden. The Sunday law now for COP26 and the G7, they want to bring all the Christian churches in to tell their people to take off Sundays and all be climate friendly in climate messages during the sermons, which is completely the opposite of everything I've ever known, because you were never allowed to talk about politics in sermons, ever. You would have lost your tax-free status, but now they're encouraging it. You're supposed to incorporate politics in your messages now in the pulpit. The world is definitely twisted again on a dime. I don't know how many twists there can be before it turns into a stretch man taffy rope of twist where you can't undo yourself. So here we go. Ransom, I do appreciate you joining me tonight.
How's it going, David? Yeah, I was thinking about that. They're not hiding what's coming. I've been talking to people about groceries just out of curiosity, what other people are doing for food and if they're thinking about anything. And of course, most people are stuck on the 24-hour news cycle. At least it does give them a little bit reason to prep. But just me looking and talking to people, they're telling me that a lot of them like to pick up their groceries from the back door of Walmart using their delivery and pre-order system through the internet. And more people are doing this. And then they're telling me that, like at first they would get all of the good stuff, the organic stuff that wouldn't show up in the store on the shelves. But now they're getting replacements or they don't get the item at all. And just scamming through the news articles while you were talking, I mean, it didn't take me but a few minutes to look at FedEx, DHL are warning about supply chain disruptions all the way into the next year. I'm looking at, thousands of businesses are going bankrupt on purpose so they can salvage some of their wealth. And then just this is a good clue right here, this article by Zero Hedge that was surveying a bunch of people about how they travel with their business. And it's almost plummeted where people are not traveling for business. And just these little clues and cues tell me that if there's no distribution and people are not traveling to make deals, that means small companies, including the ones that distribute food, are not making deals and they're not getting their products to market. This is happening all over the world. It's a complete communist shutdown of products. It's not just going to be the food. It's going to be everything. I've been looking for specific items. And it's just crazy to see that these supplies that were generally easy to get, and I'm going to say, people took it for granted, the freedom they had to get these products, are no longer available. So capitalism is shutting down. People are losing their inherited wealth one way or another. Either they're spending it to survive or they're losing it by not keeping their properties and making their properties produce. And I've been seeing a lot of that. So property is skyrocketing. It's hard to buy property. And I was also looking at another article that even businesses, multi-billion-dollar businesses, are trying to save money by putting their startups in houses. And they're invading neighborhoods, just buying up all the property. At the same time, you have the banks foreclosing, taking people's homes that haven't been paying. So we're looking in the near future, and I'm going to say something that looks a lot like the Great Depression. I mean, it's hard to get around that. And put the backdrop of the possibility that people are going to start being hungry on top of being locked down. It's starting to get a little scary. And when you brought up this whole idea of everyone worshiping, taking a day off from work on Sunday, which if you were Orthodox Christian or a Jew, you would know that the Sabbath is actually Saturday. So it is kind of bizarre that they're pushing that on the, like an entire world governance type system pushed down through the churches that are now pushing medicines at the church. They're pushing government opinions at the church. So you're going to have to decide for yourself if the religious center that you go to is actually that kind of religious center, or is it just another government mouthpiece, not unlike mainstream media at this point.
Well, the Sunday law is loosely based on 1 day of zero economic activity. It's really a little bizarre for me growing up my whole life, where there was a giant wall between any types of political statements, any types of governmental opinions allowed in any sermons. If you did that, even like 1/10 of 1%, you would lose your tax-free status at the church. Now, I did not know in prophecy at the end times with this mark of the beast that we're so familiar with, in a subsection that not so many people are familiar with, it also talks about the Sunday law comes in, and what this seventh day is not a day of rest. It's a day of non-commerce.
Yeah, no work.
And that goes right down with the planetary lockdowns. The elitists are saying, well, we need to have a climate lockdown every year to try to bring things back, or we could have 52 days each year that are climate lockdowns, basically, where they're literally no business. No business is open at all, by law, not allowed to even operate.
Yeah, it's a really deep thing. I mean, think about it. People say that it's a labor to breathe, and they're telling you to cut off all labor, all work, all commerce. And, in most religions, commerce has always been separated from the idea of enlightenment and other things. And this tells you the things that the elite are in, where they want to distort or force people into a behavior that aligns with their beliefs, some of their occult beliefs. We know that they do that from images and other things that they put in your face. And this is just like that. But this is a world religion / governance, which is the same thing that the major religions' heads are really talking about. The Pope talking about possibilities of AIs having souls, extraterrestrials. They're unraveling their own foundations that they've sold generationally to people. And it's almost like that they want to do that so that everybody is so rattled, they'll take and cling to the new system of things, which involve a beast system and a mark of a beast, whether you're religious or not, because it is a system built by humans or maybe an AI. Either way, it enslaves the entire race under a little QR code where someone could pull up their entire life as a quantitated thing. And if you just think about that, there is some kind of entity or intelligence, and I hope it's not man that created this, because that's a whole nother scary thing, but something that wants to quantize us all into a mathematical equation that can be reduced or multiplied as needed, whatever outcome is desired. And if you don't think that you're a product at this time, like if you haven't figured that out throughout your life, right now, you should understand that, because they're going to be limiting everything from CO2, which is basically the labor of your breath. So anything you do, literally paying to breathe on Earth, is these carbon taxes and things like that. That's exactly what they're saying. They're charging you for plant food, which is what you're going to eat as sustenance. So it's like a super evil tax on every aspect of the human domain.
Yeah, and I would come back in too with the Sunday law here. If you're going to restrict commerce on that day, you're going to reduce the entire planet from eating one whole day, unless you've already stocked up from the supermarket and you cook at home. Because as we've seen in parts of Australia, there is no business allowed to be open any longer, including food takeouts. Done with. So if you were relying on that, which so many people had, what do they call that? Contactless pick up something. There's so many new jargons all the time. I kind of lose track of it. But that was the thing where, okay, I can't cook at home. They're too lazy or whatever. And then everything you just order on the app, and then you can go pick it up. Well, in Australia, they got the rude awakening of you couldn't even do that anymore. And every restaurant was closed, and there were no pickups and no takeouts, and nothing worked prior. So can you imagine a good, probably 20% of the population in some of those cities was operating on that principle of I order on my food, I go get it. And then when that ceased, they can go out and go shopping. See, here's the thing. They can go shopping one day, 1 week, which is very similar to the Sunday law, but it's the inverse. So imagine only being able to go out shopping 1 day, 1 week to get all of your food essentials. And then what if the supermarkets don't have it and they're out of some, like we see everywhere across almost every country now, store shelves are empty of items left, right, and center. So what if you go there and they don't have what you need? Well, too bad. You only get one day to go shopping in Australia. Now, bring it down into a single day here. So what are people going to be relegated to when you either must stop business for one day or you only have one day to complete all of your business in an entire week? Sunday law, 1 day off of commerce, 6 days of business, but then in other places in Australia and New Zealand, etc., you're only allowed 1 day of commerce, 6 days of no commerce. So I'm wondering if there's some sort of equation around well, the number of days off for no commerce in all these other countries are equaling the 1 day that they're trying to force upon the world. Because another thing I'm noticing here, Ransom, the countries, and it just came to me as I was sitting next to a river listening to rapids earlier today. The countries that have the highest import of food are the ones that have the most draconian lockdowns on the planet. So when you start to take a look at a country's imports of food, just go around the planet and see who imports the most food percentage-wise of what they produce locally to feed that need. And I really believe there's a algorithm out there trying to balance and swinging us into this 1 day of no commerce. When they come to COP26 here, and they also get this whole thing in London, and the G7, they're all deciding on this Sunday law and restriction of business, this set of meetings.